Welcome everyone to the July webinar for OnBoard. I wanted to welcome to the program Paroon Chadha. Paroon, thank you for joining us today. Before we dive in, let's have a quick history lesson. You founded Passageways in 2003 and continue to lead its business strategy as a CEO. Can you give us a brief history on the genesis of Passageways?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hello everybody. Thank you. So happy to be actually sharing this part of my journey here. This started back in 2003. I graduated from Purdue and I finished my MBA. And as part of my MBA curriculum is when we first wrote the business plan for Passageways. In fact, we won the business plan competition on campus and several other university business plan competitions as well. And that's really sort of how we got our start. The original business plan was for building a collaboration platform for the enterprise. And we started out with employee collaboration. My business partner was Christopher. Christopher was also a Purdue student. And we got our seed capital from a credit union in town, Purdue Federal Credit Union. In fact, there's an interesting backstory here worth sharing. My finance professor, Professor Jillian Sullivan, she's still teaching at Purdue. She was the chairman of the board at the local credit union, Purdue Fed. And she'd reviewed our business plan and she'd mentioned that we should go call up Purdue Fed. And we didn't really know that she was associated with them at all at the board level. And we made a cold call. The IT manager at that time, Bill Arnold, he picked up the call and he invited us over. And once we got there, we really had a great interaction right into the first 10, 15 minutes. We'd really engaged them with our business plan. And they needed the employee collaboration platform. And 2-3 meetings later, they ended up not only buying the software for $30,000, they also invested $100,000 into the company. That was the only money we took, but that's how we got our start. Me and Chris, when we graduated, we started as Passageways, a team that was put literally in the server room, the cold server room at Purdue Fed for a few days. And then we were eventually moved over to the retail level. So that's sort of the very beginning of where we started. From there, we got a lot of customers. In fact, at the end of the first year, we had 10 credit unions as customers, and we continued to go from strength to strength. In fact, we are profitable at the end of year one itself. And we continued to grow, as an organization. We added more team members, a lot more customers, about 4 years into this, we ended up on the Inc. 500 list of fastest growing companies in America. And we continue to stay in Lafayette, Indiana, and operated as what we now know as Passageways. That's the very early part of our journey. And I think as time went by, we added a lot more customers, a lot more team members, and we also diversified into the community banking space because that was an obvious adjacency that we could get to. And from there on, there were a lot more ups and downs, as you can imagine. What I remember, and I think this is worth sharing, is that, the days were really long in the early part of the journey and the years were really short. You kind of remember every year, at least I remember every year, most vividly, I remember the planning meetings and the Christmas parties.
Oh, I bet.
And those are often sort of, how I tend to place things, in the past 15, 16 years. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you got started basically with the credit unions. So you've always had that strong history with the credit union. So at what point did you decide to transition to other verticals or other industries?
Yeah, so I think we started to get a lot of advice from other people outside, and often people would ask us, is this software specific to credit unions or community banks? And the answer was no. It could apply almost anywhere, as we all know now that we have customers in several different verticals. we just, found the financial services industry to be an amazing industry just because, we were in the secure collaboration space, and compliance and security, was worth the premium in that vertical. Thereafter, 2009, when that crash happened, that's when we got really serious about diversifying into other products and industries. In fact, that's when we started to really pivot into the board portal market, and OnBoard, came into being. Prior to that, we had several customers who were using our Ensemble product line. Some of you guys may not even realize we started, building the Ensemble product, which is an employee collaboration suite. It's a packaged intranet, but a lot of our customers were using Ensemble for their board collaboration. And we were always curious. We wanted to look more into it. Once we started to really see that this is something that is repeatedly being done, we started to inspect that a little more carefully. And really, it was slim pickings in the early stages. And really everything changed once the iPads were invented. In fact, I think the single biggest contribution to our business may still go to Steve Jobs. That's really when our business, essentially became a very fast-growing business.
That's awesome. So some people may know or may not know, but you really bootstrapped Passageways for the majority of years. So recently you did do a capital raise. What was the impetus for doing an actual capital raise for Passageways?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, we've stuck around. In fact, I'm a firm believer in, growing at the right pace. We saw some very early growth up front. And, primarily for me, I was already an immigrant in this country, and I had no aspirations to really kind of move shop to the East Coast or the West Coast. And really, we were offered money several times, throughout, our history. In fact, we've been profitable for 15 straight years until last year when we raised money. Our main goal for raising money was to really kind of just do justice to the opportunity on hand. We started to see several key areas where we felt like that was our wheelhouse. We really had to solve some problems that that were actually recurring over the years, and we wanted to invest more in really, the two product lines that started to really become very powerful. In fact, at this current pace, we doubled our team in the last 6 months. We are a team of 100 plus folks now. The real reason for investment was to really kind of just make sure that we don't shortchange our growth potential. In a bootstrap manner, obviously, you have to depend on the profits from every year, and you can just reinvest the profits. And that holds up the growth. And we started to feel like we could not attract enough talent. We couldn't really hire good engineers and good salespeople and good success managers fast enough. And that's when it all came to a head. We've been quoted, often in the past. We started to look around, and we found the right investment in a company based out of Kansas City. So we still stayed with a Midwest investor. The name of the company is 5 Elms, and it's been actually one of the most fun experiences I've had in my life. So it's a very short sort of cycle to raise money, and it allowed us to really double down on our business plan.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you kind of answered my first question of what was that impact, and let's get to the fun stuff, which is, what is culture of our company like to you? What do you feel? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I think so. When you get a chance to work with a lot of people over the years, in fact, at Passageways, one of the things that I'm very proud of is the fact that there are several people in the team that have been with me for a very long time. In fact, there are at least 5 people in the company that have spent more than 10 years at Passageways. And that's wonderful. And there's at least another 10 people who have crossed, 5 years. So, we have several people who've sort of, we call them lifers here at Passageways. And then, we felt like there's a lot more that we could do by adding, talent from outside. Indianapolis started to become a bit of a technology ecosystem. And for us, we wanted to invest in mobile. We wanted to invest in security. We wanted to invest in, cloud, technologies, and all of that led us to really kind of just, open up, how we started to see this. And we also realized that the culture of the organization will continue to evolve. The operating cadence in the past had been more around efficiency, and scarcity was almost the way it had become a way of life. We had to think really hard about making an investment, whether it was in sales or engineering. And then when we saw the big opportunity in front of us and we raised money, we realized we were going to add a lot of people, and there'll be several managers hiring folks. So we wanted to, really make sure we spend a lot of time up front in establishing our culture code and really, putting down our values so that, we grow, but we also grow in a scalable and sustainable way. In fact, I came head to head with this. We have a team in UK of 8 people. I had hired the leader in that team, Paul Stark, and most of the other hires have actually really been done by Paul. I've been on phone calls with some of these folks, but in January when I went there for the planned kickoff this year, I met several of these people, these pathfinders, as we call them, for the first time. And, it was clear to me that, making sure that everybody knew sort of the values that, really allow us to be different, yet make sure there's enough commonality in the way we look at the world. That really, had become a big part of, allowing us to be moving fast without really breaking too many things. Yeah, so, at this point, I would say the culture it's a mix of a lot of people who've seen several scale-ups and a lot of people who've been there for a fair amount of time. So I feel like we have the yin and the yang, of really building an organization that grows fast, but also knows how to sustain things.
Right.
And towards that, some of these values, always forward. That's a learning organization. Our journey has been such that we've had to really kind of just be isolated from the East Coast and the West Coast and really kind of just be learning our lessons as we experiment and continue to test out new things. We want to do that. And we really wanted to make sure that everybody knew how things are shaping or why we are doing the things that we are doing. And that led to some of these other values, like being boldly transparent and being a genuine partner, whether it's with customers or vendors or even with employees.
Nice. So now that we have those 3 offices and, your big focus on culture that we know and your big focus on scaling up, what is a typical day like for you?
It's a good question. I don't really have a typical day. And that's the best part of where I find myself now. Often, one of the things that I think about is on a Sunday evening, if I look at my calendar and if I have more than 50% of the time that's committed to meetings, then I need to think about, rejigging my schedule. Mainly because I find that my role now at this point is to make sure that I'm continuing to be strategic about, where the business is headed. A lot less of working in the business, a lot more of working on the business itself. Several interactions with advisors and my board of directors. I also, do several, ad hoc sync-ups with various team members and structured one-on-ones with the leadership team. But I leave myself enough time to go meet with other companies and other founders and CEOs and investors just to see, how they would try and solve this problem differently. And I also get a chance to meet with several of our customers and partners as well. And all of that input really is just a way to figure out, what the next quarter or the next year may look like. So I'm always trying to fit things into two different buckets, the short run bucket and the long run bucket. And that's where most of my time goes.
Nice. So we've kind of touched on it as we've gone in, the fact that we have Ensemble, but for some of our guests, they may not realize that we do have two products. So Ensemble being a company intranet, and OnBoard, which we all know and love. So specific to OnBoard, where do you see us going next in terms of industry or into different verticals?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as far as OnBoard is concerned, I feel we are just barely scratching the surface. First of all, we find ourselves in an industry where we may be the technology leader as we stand. We've spent a lot of time crafting an application which is easy to use, for administrators, for board of directors, for executive team members, and any other governance professional that touches our application. Trying to keep things simple, that's the most sophisticated undertaking we've had in the years past. We also find that there are several other competitors out there that have taken very different approaches to this. A lot of them are niche market players. We are fairly broad in the way we've attracted customers. We continue to maintain about 300 to 400 financial services customers. We have almost 100 universities at this point. We also have, more than 100 healthcare customers and a couple hundred nonprofit customers as well. While we continue to attract various technology companies, several professional services companies, several companies that are actually global in the way they're spread out, and so on. So this really has been evolving fairly quickly. In fact, one interesting aspect to share here would be that while we have about 1,500 customers, nearly 500 of those customers have actually come in the last 12 to 14 months. And that's a big number. We've also doubled our staff, but we continue to see a lot of new customers come under the tent. So as I think about the future, increasingly we'll continue to be focused around the verticals where we are finding success, which are financial, healthcare, higher ed, and then certainly the nonprofit sector. But there are several other verticals that have started to emerge for us. Manufacturing and professional services being two such examples. So it is a horizontal product. The product applies pretty much to any board, but certainly our go-to-market strategy and the way we continue to think about the functionality in the software, that's focused around the markets that we continue to target. So we'll do more of the same. Hopefully, continue to add more steam as we go here. And there are, several other gaps in the marketplace that we see based on some consolidation that has happened. There's a lot of switch sales that we are seeing. People are switching from other softwares to OnBoard. As you can imagine, that gives me, a lot of satisfaction. I think, every one of those switch sales is validation to some calls that we've made, in the years past or very recently. Now, when I really think about the longer term, I feel like there's a lot more to be done. Secure collaboration, certainly at a board level, is just the start. We have a chance to continue to expand downstream inside the organization. Board meetings tend to be very structured, and they continue to be the most important meeting you might have in your month or your quarter. But there are several other supporting meetings that happen that lead up to the information that that is often discussed and shared with the board. These are the committee meetings or the leadership meetings and several functional area meetings as well. We see about 10 to 12% of our customers are already using our software for the leadership meetings. And we feel increasingly that's something that's going to happen and it's going to become par for the course. There are several pieces we need to continue to build in the software to really make it easier and easier to enable you guys in that direction. But as I think about the next 2-3 years, I feel like we'll add a lot more customers, but we'll also deepen, just the use cases that we'll develop for each one of you. If you guys have never tried using OnBoard for one of the leadership meetings, that's the first thing I would say, you should definitely try. There are some features that we are going to develop, which are going to make it easier and easier for you guys to think about those use cases. But by and large, we've been using at Passageways, we've been using OnBoard for several other meetings. The sales meeting is run on OnBoard. Our planning meeting is run on OnBoard. Certainly our weekly management meeting is also run on OnBoard. So those are some examples of how we feel you are going to really continue to see value in what we are doing here. I know we're getting some questions regarding some of the functionality that may be coming down here. I'd be happy to share some information on that, Jillian, if that's appropriate at this point.
Great. And before we get to Q&A, I just want to ask a couple more questions. Down the road, yes, we're getting into deeper, into broader verticals. We're doing, we're scaling up. What do you see the vision of OnBoard looking like? What's that impact you'd really like us to have?
I think, when you think about teams and really the board is an extension of the leadership team. The leadership team and the advisory groups that you have, whether it's the board or it's a customer advisory group or a user advisory group, or even just advisors, we'd like to make those teams, be enabled in ways that they never experienced in the past. Our vision continues to be to inspire and enable teams to do their best work. I feel that, with the right set of information provided, in the right format, that's going to lead to results that have not been achieved. Most teams, when you ask them, they struggle in locating information from 3 months back or 4 months back. OnBoard is already that application that gets you closer and closer to giving information at everybody's fingertips. Our goal is to make the information be available. Think of it almost like oxygen, where it's there everywhere, and you can actually consume it as much as you want, and really enable teams such that they become more cohesive and they get to better outcomes. And that's sort of, the big, hairy, audacious goal that we put in front of ourselves.
Awesome. So I know that we can't give away the roadmap on features, right? But is there anything upcoming for the product that you do want to share?
Now I'm going to get into trouble. I did check with the product manager and the team involved internally. I hate to waste any opportunity to really kind of share information with everybody here. Of course, everything we do, our customers are the most important part of where the resource allocation needs to happen. So it's important that we get to know from you. So before I tell you where we are headed with this, there's a survey that we have. I think you guys probably see that survey pop up. We'd love to spend maybe a minute or two to get some answers from you on this survey. Jillian, is that survey already being shared? Because I'm seeing it in my site.
Yeah, we are good to go.
Awesome. That's perfect. So we are basically asking you about which of this functionality may be the most attractive to you guys in the next 3 to 6 months.
And I want to add on to what Paroon's saying. So if there is something on your wish list that isn't listed in this poll, go ahead and please drop your suggestions in the chat box or feel free to email your CSM directly. So even if what we have listed is not in the back of your mind or forefront of your mind, please just let us know what those are.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll give it another minute, and I'm going to get right into what I think are our current priorities. And like Jillian said, if none of these are important, we'd love to know what you'd like us to prioritize on. I'm pretty proud of our engineering team. I think the toughest part of where we are is we don't want to overcomplicate the application. We don't want to, really create something that becomes difficult for your leadership and your directorship to really kind of just adopt. And that's why we have to be very careful about how we craft each one of these. And we certainly want to make sure that we continue to advance the way collaboration happens, but not at the expense of the ease of use that we really think we've made a big priority in our planning. Okay, good. So I think if we are good to go, Jillian, I can go ahead with my answer on what the priorities.
Let's do it. 74% of people have voted. That's awesome. If you want to keep going, let's keep going.
Okay, very good. Well, so this is a good time to recap where we are. Essentially, early in the year, we've actually added a lot of functionality. Our primary focus was to make a lot of the application easier and smoother to really consume and really kind of just stay on top of. In the back half of the year, some of the possibilities that we have in front of us, we know that we're going to be working on secure messaging here. In fact, we already are. So this is going to be integrated within your onboard application. We realize that, from my own experience, in fact, I should mention, I serve on, 4 different boards. A couple of them are nonprofits and some others are, obviously, one is the Passageways board itself. There's a hospital board that I serve on. There's a Big Brother board locally in Lafayette that I serve on as well. So I have a lot of experience in just dealing with this interaction as well. Secure messaging is one of those aspects of the board communication, which almost everybody will say yes to it, but then when it gets down to it, nobody really wants another inbox to check. So there is some nuance involved in just making sure that this becomes a way to really be self-contained within the application. We wanted to make sure we design secure messaging such that, from a legal standpoint, if there's some discoverability aspects to the board communication that have to be kept in mind, we wanted to design something that your leadership and your directors feel comfortable and you are able to get adoption on that. I think there's huge benefits to it if all communication within the directorship and leadership team is actually done through the secure messaging that will be available in the app. So that's one. We are also working on some integrations. So you'll see a couple integrations, really kind of just become a big focus here in the next few months. In fact, we are also looking to add some more intelligence to the application. The popular highlights is one example of that. We also want to share some information on the usage analytics to you guys, and also to your directorship. And again, it's not an easy set of functionality to really drop. It's easy to build any of that functionality, but we got to keep in mind that we don't want to spook your directorship. We want to make sure that it's such that it's anonymized and it's available, so that it guides the consumer of onboards towards, engaging more meaningfully, and to really kind of be able to predict, where the board discussion will go, so that they're well prepared for it and they contribute more meaningfully. So that is, what we were working through this mid-year as we are thinking about planning. There are a few questions regarding the DNO questionnaire. The directors and officers questionnaire, it doesn't apply to everybody. The board assessment could be done using our survey tool, and that's routinely how people do that. But the DNO questionnaires apply only to certain organizations, especially the publicly traded companies. So that functionality, we'd be keenly watching what you guys share with us. And like I said, we may have other pieces that we didn't have in this survey. So feel free to share any other information that, that may not actually be on that survey. I should also say that we spend a disproportionate amount of time first prioritizing what we should attack, and then also really making sure that we do deep discovery on each one of these features. So if there is any feature that you're particularly passionate about, feel free to let our team know and let your CSM know, so that if we get a chance to engage with you, even before we design the screens or even after we have the initial screens start to show up, we'll be happy to engage with you. We're constantly looking to get some input. It just makes us more efficient and also actually allows us to make sure that, we catch some of the things that we may miss.
Yeah, I actually want to piggyback on what Paroon just said. The survey was really awesome. Thank you everyone for participating. And of course, we've already shared that with product. And so a follow-up to that is, for specifically those that are interested in those integrations, if you could pop into chat or just send your CSM, really which of those integrations are most important to you, those who said integrations, let us know so we know what we can focus on. So thanks everyone so much for doing that. Now, we are closing out our webinar for today, but we wanted to check back in and see if there were any more questions for Paroon. I know that the biggest questions were obviously features, tell us all the fun stuff coming, but I really wanted to check in and see if anyone else had any other questions. Hey, thanks Melody for about the box integration. I'll pass that along. Does anyone else have any questions that are not specifically for Paroon? Most of what I see coming into chat is specifically for product.
And that's wonderful. I love to hear about the product. You saw a picture of me and my wife Gauri and my 2-year-old Shrey. I should say that OnBoard and Ensemble are the first 2 kids I had. So there's nothing better to know more about what I should do with these products. So it's wonderful to see some of these comments come through.
And we're really excited, Paroon. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us this afternoon. And thanks everyone for jumping on and just hearing the direction and the history of OnBoard. We really love being here, and we love helping our customers become successful and do really good work in the community. So if there's anything else that you'd like to follow up with, please hit your CSM. We're always here to help. And we just want to say thank you so much again to Paroon and to everyone who joined the call. Have a great afternoon and a great rest of your week.
Yeah, thank you guys. And I should say, I am based out of Chicago. So if you ever actually end up coming to Chicago, you can certainly look me up and we'll share my information. My email is just paroon@passageways.com. And then, certainly we have offices in Lafayette and Indianapolis and just outside of London and UK. So if you happen to be at any of these places or around, please don't be shy, look us up, and I'm sure, you will learn a lot more about our culture, by meeting us. Some of you guys actually end up at Powwow, which is our event for Ensemble. I should say that if your organization is looking for an intranet application, you should certainly consider Ensemble as one of the solutions to look at. There is a conference that's coming up here in September. The information for the conference is already on our website. So check that out or send that information to anybody in your organization, whoever is looking at that particular project. And we'd love to engage you guys on our other product as well. And thank you again.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Paroon. Have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.